the real, raw, honest conversations about parenting teenagers in today's world. No filters, no sugarcoating, just truth, compassion, and practical insight from experts, educators, and parents who are right in the trenches alongside you. This podcast is where parents come to hear the conversations they didn't even know they needed. My mission is simple: to help you feel supported, informed, and empowered so you can build the connection with your teen that you truly want. If you want to go deeper into this work with me, stay until the end, and I will share how you can connect with me. From my heart to yours, thank you for being here, for doing the hard work of parenting, and for choosing to grow right alongside your teen. Welcome to another episode of Parenting Teens Advice Redefined for today's world. And today we are exploring something very powerful that many parents instinctively feel maybe, but might not fully understand yet: the healing relationship between animals and the human nervous system. My guest today is Prairie Conlon, a licensed mental health therapist and equine-assisted psychotherapist who integrates animals into trauma therapy, autism support, and emotional healing. Prairie is also the founder and developer of Emotional Support Assisted Therapy, a model designed to deepen the therapeutic benefits of emotional support animals. Her work has been featured on Military Makeover, The Guardian, documentary Creature Comforts. But beyond all the credentials, Prairie brings something deeply personal to this conversation: her lived experience with adoption, ADHD, and raising an adopted child on her own. Today, we're going to explore why animals, and horses in particular, can reach places in the brain and nervous system that traditional talk therapy cannot, and what this means for families raising neurodivergent teens. So, sorry to break the news, but if your kid puts a pony on their Christmas list, they've got some ammunition now. Welcome, Prairie, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
So am I. And I want to start first, dive into, why are you doing this? What is the point? How did you get here?
Yeah. So honestly, all the way up until the middle of my bachelor's degree, I was going to be a veterinarian. I was adopted out of Oklahoma onto a Kansas farm. My parents raised cattle down by Dodge City, Kansas. And I was just going to be a veterinarian. I loved animals. I worked for veterinarians. So that it was set in stone. That's what Prairie's going to do. I ended up, I was Miss Rodeo Kansas State. And at the end of the rodeos, so for a year long, I got to represent the state of Kansas. That was super fun. And at the end, or usually before or after the rodeos, they would have a special needs rodeo. And that was where I started seeing some really amazing things happening. Things with autism, with, physical therapy, mental health therapy, pieces to that, and then parents just gushing later about, I've never heard my kid talk so much or open up, and it was like, these animals are a venue. So then I start thinking kind of back on my experiences growing up with all these animals. And, I brought all these animals home, but then we had horses ourselves, and they just help regulate, being, kind of off the walls myself, ADHD kid, broke my arm the first time when I was 13 months old, my poor parents. So I was just all over the place. And I had a pony that my, parents had for me that they didn't keep it necessarily up next to the house, and so I would have to just go get this horse. I'm like, why aren't you catching the pony for me? And not therapists, they're cattle farmers, but they're like, well, that, going and chasing that pony really helps Prairie. And I'm sure it was like the normal parent thing, like, oh, it's just going to tire her out. But reflecting on that, you have to regulate yourself to catch a horse, because horses are prey animals. And if I'm running out there and I am 100 mile an hour And I'm like, so excitable. This horse is going to go. I don't think so. I absolutely not. Like, you're not getting near me. And, I would sometimes remember going and pouting, like, I can't catch the horse. Well, try again. You got to calm down. I'm like, well, I am calm, and I love that because it's like, I've used that so much in therapy with kids when I'm like, wow, you're saying the word calm, but does your body look calm to the horse? Because the horses are looking more about what is your body saying to them? And I had to learn to actually emotionally regulate to catch the horse. And I use that technique all the time. And that's why I love horse therapy for adolescents and teens, because there is no better lesson on how to self-regulate than an animal telling you absolutely not. Because I can sit there and talk to you over and over. I can talk to a kid and say, hey, where are you feeling this in your body right now? Like, what is going on? And they might acknowledge it, maybe. It's really hard to kind of get through to kids sometimes. Mm-hmm. But when they are experiencing the reaction to their body language from an animal that they want to touch, because there's something about a horse, right? They're magical. Kids want to touch the horse. And the horse is going to say, you're not touching me until you're safe. I don't care what words you say. They're going to mirror back to the kid what's going on. And so, yeah, I think it's a wonderful form of therapy. It's, something that I've reflected a lot on. I use a lot. And it's been quite the journey.
That's beautiful. And I mean, I'm a horse lover myself, so I totally understand even just the motivation. If I was in the situation as a kid and I want that horse to love me, it's, the motivation of that just would be over the top for me.
Yeah.
So for parents who are thinking, and we say the word therapy, and, therapy is amazing in all sorts of arenas. Oh, no pun intended. Mm-hmm. But for parents who are thinking therapy should be like sitting in a room, talking to somebody, that's therapy. But tell us about how, even with neurodivergent kids, how this is different than sitting on a couch talking to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it absolutely has its place. So let me say that first. But do you like sitting still in an office? Like when I was doing my practicum coming out of school, and my husband's military, so I'm around a military base, and here's like a 12 by 12 office to work with combat veterans. Like, do you really want to sit in here with? That's a lot of energy. I mean, if you can get out, walk, and talk with people, I'm a big advocate for that. But, I think it's important for movement. I think movement is important for everybody, but more so for the developing brain of an adolescent and a teenager. Like, here they are, they're having to go sit in school all day, and then they get home and we're like, why are you so crazy? Well, you go sit. I mean, I feel a little bit like that too. I'm just tired, but because I'm older. But, that's like, it's a lot to ask a kid. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, like that, that therapist, that look and the intensity of it is a lot. I feel like even I now would kind of crumble under that, like, oh, it's therapy can be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I just think that there's a lot of ways that you can make it more comfortable. If I'm in office, I like to, ask your therapist, can I bring my dog? I let them bring their animal if they want to, or they can do a checkout catalog of my animals. Do you want a cat? Do you want a horse? Do you want a dog? But I feel like hands-on, I call all animal-assisted therapy, even if you're sitting on the couch with a dog, that is experiential therapy, though. There is an experience going on. There are more of your senses involved. And that's why you open up. Like I use this example all the time. When you go to a hairdressers usually know more than your therapist. There's something about the sensory thing that's going on that relaxes you. It calms the nervous system, and you start talking to your therapist. The same type of idea of using these animals to, use an animal to have a conversation with your kid. If there's something that's hard to talk about, like get the animal in the room, put them on your kid's lap. They're having a hard time. There's something about the animal's ability to help regulate versus, the human interaction, which can be intimidating.
Mm-hmm. And what comes to my mind as well as you're talking is the judgment-free zone of an animal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Animals are unconditional. We can't, as much as we want to be. Like, I know some of the most amazing people in the world, they're not unconditional. We're not capable of that. Mm-hmm. Animals are capable of unconditionalness. And that is it's freedom. It really is.
Yeah.
I saw I think it was a Allstate or whatever progressive insurance commercial, and it was saying how they could bundle and put animals or something in there, but the animal was part of the commercial, and it showed this person, with the mask on all the time, but then when they were around their animal, like boo-hooing over a commercial, or the animals are with us. We don't mask, we don't pretend, we don't. It's such a place of freedom for everybody, regardless of age. But I think it's really a good, it's such a good buffer for adolescents and teenagers too, who are already going, what in the world? Hormones.
Well,
the world as it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it feels to me too, if they're bringing their animal into therapy, it's like I have someone else on my side. Mm-hmm. It's not just you against me. It's like I got this little support system here that, and then so there's two against you. So it almost feels like.
Absolutely. And I like that you said the word against, because a lot of adolescents and teenagers feel like therapy is a punishment.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, started acting up at school, and they're like, you're going to counseling. And it's a really hard thing to explain to a teenager. I mean, I'm a therapist, and my own kids are like, oh, therapy, that means something's wrong. And that's a really hard concept to explain to them. Like, we're going because we're having, problems with this, and you're uncomfortable on the day-to-day doing this. We're trying to find a solution for you. It's not a punishment. Mm-hmm. And so that is one thing I do encourage parents to say is think about, if you are going to bring therapy into the conversation, don't let it be as a punishment, like a phrase that's like, you have gotten in trouble 5 different times now at school, or going to counseling. Mm-hmm. That sounds like a punishment.
Yeah.
That's very complicated to navigate. And that's where I feel like I'm kind of cheating as a therapist, because I'm like, well, I have horses.
Yeah.
We can go brush the horses.
There's that.
Yeah. So that's what I kind of have that going. And that's why, again, I've told you, Cheryl, that I think animal assisted therapy, particularly the equine therapy, is the correct form of therapy for teenagers and adolescents. Yeah. And the reason I say equine versus like the dog, which is great. I mean, if they want to sit in here and pet one of my therapy dogs, that's great. But I will never forget when I was still interning, and I was so lucky that there was a horse barn that had dogs and everything that were like, would you like to intern here too for your, practicum? And absolutely, that's amazing. But I will never forget that I was working with a kid that I was trying to use the animal as an example that, you can't be that bad, because there were a lot of negative self-talk. And I said, you can't be that bad. Look, the dog, he's choosing to be right by you. He's loving on you. And he goes, I could kick that dog and he'd come back. And I never forgot that, because that has so many other implications in so many ways in the therapy world, where it's like, ooh, that's not what we're wanting to model here. And so that's why I went primarily, unless they ask, over to the equine therapy, because the horses are going to be like, you're not going to kick me. I don't think so. Like, get away from me. Like, I'm going over here, or you're not safe. And then I could use phrases like that. Because the horses do choose. Horses absolutely choose. And I think that helps model good boundaries for them. And that was the big thing there too, was looking at that. I mean, oh my gosh, here's this kid that's in the foster system, and, we're telling him that how the dog is acting is good. And it was like, oh no. And, we're always learning, but, that's why I like to push towards that, is because the horses are going to mirror back to the teenagers, to the adolescents. They're going to mirror back to anybody who comes in with them, and they are going to ask them to regulate, or they are not going to put up with it.
Yeah.
And boundaries are great. And here's one of the best parts. There's about half the amount of talking, and that's what they don't want to do. They're coming in there, and I learned that too with the veterans, with the combat soldiers. Talking. Sometimes that processing, it could just be a lot versus experiential, finding the right times to interject when needed. Sometimes, and finding that they are just needing to self-regulate. And that's a huge piece, is that self-regulation. I mean, I know a lot of adults that don't know how to self-regulate. We're asking these teenagers to self-regulate when they are flooded with these hormones and new situations. And now you have to grow up. Oh, you're a little kid. And now all of a sudden we're expecting you to act like a man. And, and I'm guilty of doing this with my own kids, but it's so hard, because you're like, well, now you're this age, so you should act like this. And it's like, they don't know any different. They don't know that, all they've ever had is us doing everything. And so I think that it's really confusing with all that energy, all that frustration, figuring out how to handle that. Best place in the world, a horse pasture.
Yeah. And when I hear you say, it's funny, it just popped in my head, like self-regulation, we're assuming there's that nuance for a kid, a teenager, who knows what self actually is. Who am I regulating? I don't even know who I am. What are you talking about? So it's almost very nuanced. I think that's really interesting. And I also think when you are talking about the boundaries, like horses set boundaries, I feel like it almost indirectly teaches our kids what it means to have a spidey sense, what it means to recognize on their end too. So that the horse is recognizing it from them, but it might develop that skill for them, saying, oh, this human over here does not feel so good. And I can set that boundary.
It's okay to keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
It's okay to keep yourself safe. It's okay to distance yourself. That's a hard thing to tell kids. And it really kind of is different generationally as well. Like, you go give so-and-so a hug, you go do this. And, that is, it's good for them to learn, what does that feel like when it's not good? What is going on? And again, I love the horses too, because instead of sitting in an office building rapport, because I don't even know how to build rapport with my own teenagers, is you get out there with 1,000-pound animal, and all the layers are stripped away. Like, everybody's like, well, my kid's not a horse person. They've never had any experience with horses. Even better, because I know my horses are safe. I've vetted them, and I stick them out there, and all of the masking, all of the layers, all of the posturing is gone. It's gone. We're right there. And that's why I like it too, because it's less sessions. I mean, that should really be the goal of therapy. I want to get you out of my office. I don't want to make a chronic patient. And if you ever run into anybody that tries to make you a chronic patient, I cannot say this loud enough, then you found the wrong therapist.
Thank you.
Anybody. I don't care what age. Yeah.
There's a nugget for you. 100%. I know people have had the same therapist for years and years and years. And I'm like, is this really therapy? Is it? I don't know. But another point to make. So what I want to ask you then too about the nervous system is the science behind what is actually happening in the brain and the nervous system of a teen when they're interacting with an animal as opposed to a human. And why is it so powerful?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it takes away that verbal piece to it. So it's all nonverbal cues that they're having to pick up. And that is what kids use as defense these days. It's just, I mean, it's like the talking, because it's very great. We have transitioned to this place where we're talking to kids about feelings and we're talking about, let's respect each other's boundaries. But then you also see on the flip side of this, and some people don't like it when I say it, but then they will attach to that and use that as a defense to where it's just, I'm going to continually use that. And let me tell you why I'm not going to do my chore. Let me going to tell you why I continue to get in trouble at school or don't do my homework. And it's like, I'm like, you're filibustering and it's not helping anything, but I see that a lot. I hear that a lot from clients with their kids that, well, what do you do with that? I want to let them express their feelings. And it's like, well, they're figuring out that if they just stay there, then they don't actually have to do it, So, but with an animal, it's nonverbal. So there's body language, and we're looking at body language where, again, that physical interaction, and we call this experiential therapy versus straight talk therapy. So experiential therapy is anything that's going to involve other senses, play therapy with, kids in the sandbox. That's experiential because, again, we're moving our bodies, we're interacting. So that absolutely, activates different parts of the brain as well. So now we're not just working in your verbally accessible memory. We're working in our emotional, in our sensory memory. And sensory memory is where a lot of emotions live. That's where a lot of that, our sensory accessible memories. They're the interesting ones too, where trauma memories live, because sensory memories are those ones that you don't necessarily recall. That like, oh man, I smell this smell. And it was crazy. It made me think of my grandma's house or something like that. Or, I heard a really loud sound and I felt like I needed to hit the deck, combat soldier type stuff. Those are sensory memories where they're not recalled, but they're just there. And that's where trauma lives. And that's why sometimes I say you could talk until you're blue in the face, but we might not be able to access those sensory memories. And that's, again, experiential therapy, working with horses, walking and talking, accelerated resolution therapy, huge advocate for that. It is a wonderful form of therapy where we work on sensory memories. We work on how the body feels in these situations, because once it's activated and once we're in fight or flight, it's really hard, as our bodies are creatures of habit, to get out of that place, to get out of that feeling of, I feel like we're walking around with majority of hypervigilant people.
Yeah.
And how does that activate our teenagers and our kids when they're, surrounded by hypervigilant adults? And so their nervous systems get activated. So, I think it's really important that I just huge advocate for experiential therapy in any form when it comes to the younger kids.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I also kind of want to address parents are going, it's just for comfort. Like this whole animal thing. They just want a dog. They just want a dog. They just want a pony. Can you speak to the mom or dad that's thinking, just listening, going, yeah, I've heard this. I want a service dog. I want to go online. I want to get the vest for my dog so I can take him everywhere. And it's just comfort. They just want it. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, don't ever do that because they're finally cracking down on that. Impersonating a service dog, it's a criminal charge in a lot of states now. And it's a misdemeanor.
Good to know.
Yeah. So don't just slap a vest on a dog. The fact that they're selling these vests anywhere is kind of crazy to me. You need to qualify for one, and you need your dog to be fully trained as a service dog in order to take your animal in public access. But as far as, kind of, I see a lot more with the teenager population, emotional support animals for housing situations. And I think there's a ton of validity to that, especially like when they are just moving to college or, moving out of the home for the first time. The animal might be a familiar presence that they had when they go out into the world, and it creates routine and accountability for, a whole new world that they're not used to. The animal's going to make them keep a schedule. But yeah, I do hear that a lot. They just like it. They just want to have their animal in public just to have it for show. And sure, I run into people that try to game the system like that, and it's sad. But that's every system. There's going to be people that are gaming that, but it should not take away from the validity of what an animal can do for people's mental health. People's pets have saved their lives 100%. There have been animals that have, people that have trouble with PTSD, with, suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation. These animals have created reasons for people. Loneliness is an epidemic. It is just, and the thing too is there's just not a lot of the type of physical interaction that we used to have. Before COVID, I'm just a hugger. I'm gonna hug people. I'm gonna shake their hand. Now you're like, what do we do?
Yeah. Oh, me too. Oh my God.
And that can create mental health issues in itself. Touch deprivation is a real thing, and in an animal, they're up in your face. They're, I want to sit on your lap. And I mean, my goodness, you're telling me right now that and of course these are for pet people, but I will say 75% of households in America have pets. So you're telling me when you go home and you sit down on the couch and you're like, oh, blah, 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 all the things and all the noise, and you sit down and that animal doesn't come sit on you, there isn't a thing that happens. You can't feel that blurring and fuzziness. And
yes.
Ooh, there it is. Thank goodness. There it is.
So
and
true.
That is chemical. There are cool MRI studies that have been done that show, look at this is what it does. It absolutely does. It starts regulating these brain waves, and it has a huge impact on your nervous system. That hypervigilance that we feel all day, there it comes down. I love it when I hear young single women talk about, man, I just feel like I can relax because my dog would tell me if somebody was here.
So true.
They would tell me. And so I love to reinforce that. I'm like, yeah, your dog can hear 4 times better than you. And so you can relax because they're hypervigilant. They're on it. And they'll know so you can go to sleep, and just stuff like that. So yeah, I think to the haters, if you're not an animal person, is this going to help you? Absolutely not. But animal people, I know that the majority of people are animal people. Come on.
Yeah.
And there is absolutely, just anecdotally, y'all know what it does for you. But there's studies, and if you want them, Cheryl, I will send them to you because there's some really cool, fun studies that have been done that show, MRIs of people that they gave them a robot dog for 15 minutes. They gave them like somebody else's dog for 15 minutes. And then they did their own dog for 15 minutes. And it was incredible. The way that their brains, and they did it on separate days so they could kind of get a better, like the robot dog, things didn't change very much. But the somebody else's dog, like it helped a little bit. And so, I mean, I do love that. I like that there's colleges that do, bring a dog in for, finals week or whatever, and they can go pet the dogs. I love that. That's great though. I mean, it's a healthy distraction from it. So continue to do that. But with your own animal, it was like, how much medication you'd have to give in an amount of time to get your body and neurotransmitters to flood the way that they do in 15 minutes with your own animal.
Wow.
You can't replicate that in the real world with medications. And so, I mean, it's, and what that is. Like, I encourage everybody to go, while you're feeling your feels right before you get home, you go sit down with your animal, like notice that. It just feels like, for me personally, it's like, it feels like there's a lot of noise and it's just like, oh my gosh, there comes that tunnel vision. And
that's
feels so great.
I feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And being hyper vigilant.
Kids.
Yeah.
Think about that when they get home from school.
Yes.
And they're like, ugh. And you're like, how are you doing? Fine. How was your day? Fine. Anything good?
Yeah.
I'm all about, because I have that, that ADHD kind of that noise and everything too. And I like to say, give them a minute, because they've been keeping it together all day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here's a dog. Yeah. They'll help you. And I mean, it's very visible to me to watch them come down. And that right there, that alone, if that's something that you're looking for and your kid gets home and all of a sudden they're just like wild and they're erratic and they're, letting out everything that they could not let out because they had to sit still all day, being able to focus that on an animal and,
Yeah. I couldn't agree more on that one. I would love to talk specifically to ADHD, autism, and how kids who cannot articulate their feelings or are even non-speaking, how does the animal bridge that gap for them in communications?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The big thing is going back to their nonverbal. They're not communicating with us using their voices. Mm-hmm. They're not. They are communicating with, that neurodivergent mindset where they're at. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are noticing body. That's honestly when, it gets down to the science of it all. That's how they're communicating. And that's how they're understanding communication. That neurodivergent brain, how it looks at things, how it sees things. I love Temple Grandin in her book, her documentary. She got down on all fours to see what it would be like to be the cow. And then she created this, this system to make everything more humane and more approachable. And that right there just shows there is more of processing everything as a whole versus just the words, which is what a lot of us, do these days. Yeah. And so I think that and there's, and how they're giving off their energy. And so those are things that, neurodivergent people notice. And I think that is why the animals are so secure for them, because if you do push at the dog or something, you could tell their ears are going to go back and they're going to get upset, or they're going to, maybe growl, hopefully not, but they're going to communicate. Mm-hmm. And I think, I know I really appreciate that. It's like, yeah. Okay, yeah, right there. I see the animals very clearly communicating to me. I've always been I feel like animals have running subtitles over their head. You can't see it. That was really mad. Yeah. We were at a party one time that they had a petting zoo. And I told my husband, I was like, come here, look. I was like, that llama right there is going to spit at that person. He's like, no, he's not. Look at that. It looks fine. Oh no, he's going to spit. Watch. We watched for 2 minutes, just that thing. Oh man, it was so fun. He's like, how did you know that? I was like, you just figure that out. You figure out the animal's movement
and
notice it. And so I think, that is, as I was going through with psychology and schooling and everything, it was like, right there. Yeah, that's why I noticed those things. That's interesting. Yeah.
That is. So can you, and obviously not name names, but can you take us on a short journey of the first day you meet a teen and you're going to walk them through how it looks day one compared to, the progress and what it might look like therapy day 5 sort of thing, like just so parents can go, okay, I want to get a picture of what this might look like for my kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, with the equine therapy, I'm just right out there. Usually I have talked to the parent through video or something and then had everything signed, because I feel like they're already generally not going to want to be there. Yeah. I always make that assumption just because I don't see a lot of teenagers that are like, oh, I'm like mandatorily doing counsel. I don't think so.
Yeah.
And so I want them to come out of the car directly to the pasture. Mm-hmm. I tell mom and dad, like, you go around, even on the other, you can sit in your car, but go around on the other side of the barn or something, like, because they're like, oh, we're going to watch. Like,
oh my God.
This is not an athletic activity where I'm teaching them anything. Like, this is our time. And, we actually, I will never forget, just kind of side story, where there was a parent that just could not stay out of it. And that was very telling for me as well. And they were like, this was years and years ago, kept coming around and I didn't notice, but the horse did. And the horse would all of a sudden just ears up and,
oh my God,
what is happening? Like, because we always use the horse's movements to go, what's going on? Why is the horse doing that? Because I want them to react to the client.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, my mom's just hovering again. And I'm like, good grief. Like, I could do 10 sessions and maybe not get that much of like the meat and potatoes of therapy that I need and insight in office versus what I got right there. Like, how do you think the horse feels about that? And it's great. That's why I love that type of counseling, because it is so hard for really everybody to kind of like, let me really explain my feelings versus projecting feelings.
Yeah.
They're projecting onto that horse. Well, the horse is really irritated because they're they're always in their business and they're always, and it's like, oh, really? Tell me more about how the horse feels,
Yeah.
But it's wonderful to use the animals as a projection. But yeah, that's what I like to generally get right out there. I know equine therapists do things differently. Sometimes they'll do like an intro session. I like to be out there. Teenagers have a lot of chaos and energy, and it's like, let's give them room for it. So let's go out to the horses right away. We're going to get in there. Yes, we are. Boom. I want to get to work. Let's start. And once they're in there, like I said, take some time to go introduce yourself to the animal. And so I think that has been a surprise sometimes to parents, is if they see you're not standing by them, you're standing 30 yards away. Why is my kid over there? Is this doing therapy? Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. It's doing more therapy than if I went and talked their ear off. Okay. Mm-hmm. The equine therapists, what we do is we're observing, we're watching, we're noticing the kids' reactions. If they're startling, and we're bringing that into the corporation, or incorporating that into like, what was going on there? For a second, I saw something and, it was this or that. But again, they can project what they're thinking onto it. So that's generally how I do things. I know everybody does things a little bit different, but I know that is a huge one, is giving them a little space with the animal. Every equine therapist will do that. Animals are great space holders. They're better at people than that again, too. That same kind of category of being unconditional. We're not the best at holding space. I'm a therapist, and like with my own family, I'm not very great at holding space because I'm like, let me fix it. Let me help you. Do you want a hug or do you want, what do you, that's what we do as parents and mothers and spouses. And like, we want to do that. And so I think, it is really good to see them in a therapeutic setting. Like when you think, oh my gosh, why am I paying for this person to be out there in therapy and they're not even talking to my kid and they're 30 yards away? What are they doing? There is work being done. There's more work being done than if they were sitting and talking and I talked their ear off in office. That is just my professional opinion on it. I've tried both. I don't see a lot of results with the sit and talk. It's just it's a lot. Yeah. So I like that. And I think it's really great at teaching boundaries, teaching holding space. I like to see results in 4 to 6 sessions. Like, wow, big one in school. Like, how's school going? What's changing? What have you noticed? Sometimes acting out more, but I want to see changes. I want to start seeing results because sometimes acting out more is an indicator of something else. And so again, it brings everything out, out in the pasture with the horses. So it's very different, but super effective. But that's kind of how I approach things. And I know a lot of the equine therapists, I've had a lot of great mentors, and that's how we do things as well.
I love it. Oh my God, it's so interesting. Before we wrap up, I want to ask, is there something I didn't ask that you wish I did ask, or something else you want to add? I mean, I think like we could go on forever, but this has been so good. No, honestly, if people want to look into any of that stuff, they can look on my website, journeyswithprairie.com. One really exciting thing, I do have a book coming out for ages 4 to 12. It uses all my farm animals. Oh, amazing.
Ragnar and the Worry Whiskers. It's got all the animals that I have on the farm, and it talks about how to self-regulate using the skills that animals use. So, we always teach breathing, right? And how to do deep breaths. Well, here we talk about how the horses, they make that sound. They go,
yeah.
And so I always had kids go like, why are they doing that? Well, I don't know. You try it. You should do that and see what it feels like. And they'll be like, oh, that feels kind of good. There you go. And so when a kid gets anxious, breathe like a horse. The next thing is shake like a dog. Get up and just move. So if you sit in fight or flight or freeze versus take a deep breath, get up, shake like dogs do, and then find a friend. And I think, so that's kind of what I'm incorporating into these books for small kids on how to regulate anxiety, because it's like, ooh, let me teach a 8-year-old about square breathing. Okay. No. But if you have teachers, if you have kids over there in the corner and they're going, let them do it, okay?
I love it. That's so good. Prairie, this has been like remarkable. I've learned so much. We have not had an episode like this yet, nothing on animal therapy and especially equine. And this has been really amazing. I thank you for your expertise and your passion for this. It's so helpful. I know parents are going, okay, well, maybe this is something to explore. So parents, I invite you to check the show notes. All the information will be there. I thank you again for taking the time to listen to Parenting Teens Advice Redefined, and we will see you next time. Before you go, I really want you to know something. I'm not just a podcaster. I'm a speaker, a published author, and the founder of Insight to Impact. I'm an educational strategist and family advocate with over 25 years of experience helping families and schools support teenagers from diagnosis to IEPs, to interpreting assessments, to high school transitions, and beyond. This podcast, Parenting Teens Advice Redefined for Today's World, is part of my mission to help parents understand schools, support their teens, and feel heard and seen at the table. If today's episode helped you, please subscribe or follow the show, share it with another parent, and leave a review. It truly helps families find the support, and I'm very grateful when you do these things. And if your teen is struggling in school, navigating a new diagnosis, or you need help preparing support at school, you can work with me directly through educational consulting or my 90-day advocacy program. Just visit CherylPankers.com to learn more and to book a complimentary consultation to see if I can help. I know parenting is frickin' hard, but if you're listening to podcasts, if you're reading the books, if you're looking for answers, you are not failing because you're still trying. You do not have to figure this out alone. I got you, and we'll see you next week.